there are a lot of champions in the game, over like 800 of them or something crazy like that, and we got dozens of factions as well, so it's sometimes a little bit hard to tell which champions you should be investing in. I'm going to be making a video that I hope will help out. So this is going to be grading every single legendary champion that I have maxed out on my account. I'm going to throw the mythicals in this video as well, since I only have 2 of them. I'm going to go through, I'm going to give a grading to each one. So we're going to do the whole S to F tier kind of thing. So you got like S at the top, and then I think you go A, B, C, D, and then F at the bottom. So we'll kind of rank them on that list. I'm not going to have like an official ranking on the screen or anything like that. So you'll just have to kind of follow along with what I give them. But we'll start in here with Lady Mikage. She brings in an ally attack. She has a ton of crowd control. She has a buff extension, a debuff decrease, all that sort of cool stuff on her kit. She is absolutely fantastic. I would definitely give her the S or S plus tier, whatever the highest tier is that you can possibly include on this list. That would definitely go to Lady Mikage for sure. We have Night Queen Crixia, another absolutely fantastic champion. On her primary form, she attacks all enemies, removes all buffs, increases the cooldown of all enemy skills by 3 turns. We hop over to the secondary form, and she decreases the cooldown of all ally skills by 3 turns as well. So basically, she's increasing the cooldown of the enemy. She helps to reset your team. She is absolutely fantastic. This champion, another very easy S tier. Honestly, most of the mythicals in this game are very worth building. If you pull a mythical, you're good to just go ahead and max them, essentially, because they are incredible. We have Nethril, a champion that I have at +2 actually, because I can't get enough of this guy apparently when doing shard openings. I don't really have him built out all that much, but I have used him fairly extensively, albeit I don't have him booked. He has an AoE decreased turn meter here. He has an AoE stun as well as a decreased speed, and then a 1 enemy 3 times hitter with a chance of a poison on the A1. Overall, I would say this guy is okay. He's probably going to be sitting somewhere around the B to maybe C tier, somewhere in there. He's definitely useful. He has some decent multipliers. He can do some damage for your team, but I don't think you're really going to use this guy into the end game or anything like that. I was messing around having him in Destroy set. I was wondering if his A1 would do good damage against the Scarab. I haven't made a video on it, so it doesn't, unfortunately. Drexthar Blood Twin is up next. This guy is a hell of a grind. You have to collect the fragments from the Tag Team Arena, which is going to take you a full year of collecting 1 per day to get this champion, essentially. Is he any good? He places Decrease Attack, he places Provokes, he places Burns, he places Resistance increasing on himself, triple hitter on the A1 with more burns and all that sort of good stuff. I think he is a very, very decent champion. He's probably going to go into the B tier, though, just because I don't really use him anywhere in late-game content. So he's very useful for the early game, probably mid-game, and in very, very early late game, he could help out a little bit with Doom Tower progression, although I think these days that's probably more on the mid-game side of things. You're probably moving into Centranos for the late game. So if you have him Awakened, he can definitely help in Centranos, but I can't really think of any stages where he was crucial to passing them. So definitely somewhere around that B tier. Good champion to pick up while you can. He was very, very helpful to clear the old spider dungeon, right? But now that we have so many new HP burners and all that sort of stuff, I would say he's definitely fallen off a little bit. We have Eostrid Dream Song, this champion that I wasn't actually too hot on when she first came out, but she has grown on me. My God, let me tell you. I have her fully booked out and everything. I use her basically every single rotation in my Hydra teams. I use her quite often in Arena, Live Arena, Tag Team Arena, basically everywhere I'm using this champion right now. I'm going to give her an easy S tier in terms of, you know, her rating. And I will just say, too, this isn't necessarily an accurate rating for all of the champions. This is how they are useful on my account. So it's very possible that if you get one of these champions, they'll be more useful for you. I am very much a late game, possibly even end game player. Probably end game at this point, I would say. So keep that in mind. If I'm getting use out of them, you certainly will as well at most stages of the game, right? So some of these champions definitely will fall off. I don't think Eostrid is one of them, though. She's getting use in way too many areas, that's for sure. Sun Wukong is a beast. So he obviously has a nuke on the A2, he has buff stealing and all that sort of stuff. This guy in the city of Centranos is able to solo a lot of the content in about 3 turns on hard mode, so he's absolutely insane. You can set some world records if you have him. Incredible champion. It would be a huge disservice to do anything else than S tier for this guy, of course. Armanz, another S tier champion. I don't think we really need to say anything more about him. He is an absolute game breaker, stealing the turn meter of everybody, putting a stun, placing sheeps, all that sort of good stuff, increasing skill cooldowns. This guy is an absolute beast. Easy S tier, probably higher than S tier if you could place him there. Absolutely fantastic champion. Cardiel was a little bit disappointing, I won't lie. I was very, very excited when I initially pulled him just due to, you know, who he is, the amazing wings, the revive on death, the block debuffs, the cleanse. He has a very incredibly good kit, but I do think, for me at least, there are better options. So, for example, Lady Mikage falls in as a better option, in all honesty, because I like her ally attack and the rest of her kit a little bit better. He is very nice, though, with his ally attack, increased crit rate, increased crit damage. He does have that cleanse, like I mentioned, block debuffs, and a revive on death. And he does also have a ally receive less damage, so you could definitely get some use out of this guy inside arena or whatnot. I think I am going to go ahead and place him into the A tier, though, so he's not quite going to make it into the S tier. He's going to be kind of one level below that, just because I don't really use him a whole lot anymore, apart from some niche situations. And there are debatably better champions for most things that he does, in my humble opinion. Next up, we have Rathalos, who I had built out. I was very excited to get this champion because he looked incredible. He was, of course, a daily login for us as well. Judging by the fact that I don't even have him built at this point, you can probably guess that I don't use him a whole lot. He is useful for some stages in Centranos. Doesn't do as much damage as I was hoping he would. That's probably on my gear. I'm sure if I built him out better, he would do better, of course. I'm going to go ahead and give this guy probably a B, maybe high C tier. Damage dealers are kind of a dime a dozen, and I have definitely replacements that I choose almost every single time over this guy. Ultimate Death Knight. Ultimate Death Knight is pretty crazy. He, of course, just basically makes Rotos useless with his passive. 100% chance of completely blocking one hit, and it also decreases the damage to 0. So this guy is absolutely insane. He's useful in live arena. I don't even have that good a gear on him, but he is an absolute tank still. I have him built out decently well. I do mean to get in here at some point and, you know, do some reworking on his gear, because I could build him a lot stronger than he currently is. But this guy is insane. He places heals, he places decreased attack, he's absorbing all those hits. He has a passive where he gets stronger as other people die. He can solo a lot of content. This guy is incredible. Easy S tier. I use him in so many areas, even still in the game. Next up, we have Heffrak. Heffrak is a champion that I do actually use once in a while. He basically just nukes everybody down if they kill somebody on your team, and then he has an increased attack and increased crit rate with an extra turn. He's okay. He's nothing too crazy. He definitely can do some very, very good damage, don't get me wrong, but we do have the rise of champions that can counter him very effectively, like a Harima, for example, so it is definitely a little bit harder to use him somewhere like Arena or Live Arena or those sorts of things. Because of that, I probably am going to put him into a C tier once again. He's a very competent damage dealer, but there are champions that I use over him basically every time. Blizzard, the Howler, is a fusion that we had that places freeze on the A1. You can kind of tell they were wanting a champion for Fire Knight hard. This guy can also solo the Sand Devil if you have him built and awakened correctly, so that is pretty crazy if you're looking for a champion to do that. I think this guy is honestly probably going to be a low C tier, maybe top of F tier, honestly, because I use him in one area, and that's my hard Fire Knight team, and the instant I get Creodin the Blue or Neldor, I am replacing him. This guy does essentially one job, and he's not incredibly good at it, so his job is to essentially just place freezes. He also brings an increased defense and an ally protection, but there are champions that do that role better, because he's not particularly tanky, right? Like, his base stats aren't anything to write home about. He does have very good speed, though, which is nice, but like I say, the only place, quite literally the only place I use this guy is hard Fire Knight, so I'm probably putting him top of F tier, honestly. Definitely happy I went for the fusion, though. He does help out that team quite a bit. I do have a video about it on my channel. Marichka, the Unbreakable, is an absolutely insane champion. She places the revive on death on everybody, essentially, or rather just revives them when she gets killed, with 50% HP and 75% turn meter, which is insane. There's no cooldown on that. Full cleanse, filling the turn meter, restoring max HP if it's decreased, healing everybody, shield, and a strengthen, and of course the A1 ally attack. She's been power crept a little bit with the introduction of Narcisse Ancora, of course. I think that was kind of their intention. Still a very solid champion, though, can definitely carry you through some areas of the game. She's actually in my thumbnail as well, of course. So this champion, I would probably go ahead and rate her at honestly, a high A or a S tier, kind of like a lower S tier. She's definitely not the champion like she was when she first came out, where everybody wants this, right? You could make the argument that there are some better supports out there, especially for PvE. Still a very solid champion for PvP, unless, of course, you're getting your pick countered in live arena. Taurus, I actually like a little bit better than Marichka, if I'm being completely honest. He is an insane damage dealer. You don't need to worry about Seer, and if you have this guy, essentially, with this particular skill, his damage increases by 15% for each buff on allies. So, essentially, he's doing what Seer does, except he doesn't rip off the buffs, right? So, you're increasing the damage by having more buffs on your allies, and then he's just going to go ahead and nuke everybody down. Absolutely insane champion. Hell of a hit on the A2 as well, placing a stun. These two combined are going to be an insane combination, right? And I have him built out relatively well. I need to do a rework on this at some point too, just because I think it could be a little bit better. This guy is definitely going to be top of S tier. I do like him, like I say, a little bit better than Marichka. We have Mithrala, the champion that everybody can get. She'll turn you to stone. This is going to be the build that I have here for her. Nothing too crazy. You can get her resistance and accuracy way higher, of course. I don't use her in as many areas as I thought I would. I use her mainly in live arena sometimes if I'm trying to go against an Armand's team, but her resistance isn't really high enough. I do use her also quite prolifically inside the Hydra clan boss as well, so if you're looking for a champion there that can do some damage or, you know, help out or those sorts of things, I think she'd be a very good way to go. Probably going to give her a top of B or lower A tier rating, in all honesty, just because I do think she's a very good champion, but I don't think her use case these days is quite as good as it was previously. She was very good previously for countering, you know, for example, the speed meta, because she could resist all the debuffs being thrown at you. She could throw increased attack and increased defense on your team, and then also petrify the enemies, so she was an absolute freak, but she has fallen off a little bit in PvP, I would say. Still a beast of a champion for PvE, though. Ramont 2 Drake's Blood was a champion that I was so excited to get when he first came out because he looked like he was absolutely incredible. And then Plarium introduced Polymorph. And Polymorph single-handedly killed this champion because he has so many debuffs in his kit, especially on the A2, bringing 5 debuffs on the A2 alone, stripping everybody block active or block passive skills on the A3 there, right? So you can tell how many debuffs this guy puts out, and even a 1-star champion with Polymorph is going to be enough to make this guy pretty much unusable in most PvP fights. He's not really a champion that you're going to use in PvE unless you're trying to progress through Doom Tower and you're tired of dealing with the Mortu Macabres or something like that, right? But this guy, he's not even built, unfortunately, like, just not somebody I really enjoy using anymore. If Polymorph ever gets redone, I'll probably end up using him. So for that matter, I'm probably going to put him high B tier, I would say, because he is a phenomenal champion. But this guy basically just sits in my vault consistently. Not even in my vault, actually. I should probably vault him because I don't use him, right? So I could pull this gear off and put it on somebody else. But it's just a real shame that Polymorph, you know, just absolutely made this champion obscure. Arbiter is a speed demon. She's still one of the best speed leads for the game. I have her built out at 369 speed. Definitely struggling to get upgrades for that, right? It's been a hell of a journey. Some of these could be a lot better, but I haven't gotten better pieces yet, I don't think. She is incredible, though. Increase attack. She has a revive. All those sorts of good things. Highly recommend you build her out if you get her. You'll notice with a lot of these champions, I don't even have them booked. She's one of those champions that is not booked, but I'm using her still in Hydra. I use her in Arena all the time. You can get use out of this champion in Doom Tower, a lot of the City of Centranos waves, basically anywhere you need a revive or increase attack. I use her in Faction Wars as well. So she's still probably going to go, I would say, top of A tier, to be fair. She's definitely fallen off a little bit as well compared to where she used to be at. We have Turvold. This champion is built out decently well. 5,800 attack, 234 on the crit damage. He's not inside a Savage set or anything like that, but this guy can absolutely smack. Both his A1 and his A3 are a 2-time hitter as well, so he's very good at bypassing something like a UDK if you're using him in a live arena. This guy, is probably going to be a B tier, maybe lower A tier champion, just because he is a damage dealer and not really anything else, but he does that very, very well. He is an incredible champion. We have Pythion. Pythion is a freak of a fusion as well, who brings an AoE revive, AoE cleanse, block debuffs, and a heal on the A1. Basically Duchess from Wish.com, if you want a very good comparison there. I have him built out in a 5-piece protection set, and these are the stats that I'm rocking on him here, right? So probably should take a little bit off that defense and put it into HP instead. Relatively fast champion as well. I would like to have him built out in Stone Skin, but I was testing things with the protection essentially to see what I can make happen. This guy is insane. I use him all the time in PvP, PvE, all sorts of areas like that. He's very useful for some areas of City of Centranos as well, so I'm going to go ahead and flat out give him an S tier, no question about it. Yoshi the Drunkard is a pretty cool champion that brings an increased attack and increased accuracy and all those sorts of good things. I did actually make a video on him not too long ago in the Supersonic set. I'm going to keep it short though. This guy doesn't bring a whole lot for today's meta. He's probably going to be sitting in lower C tier, maybe top of D tier. He's definitely fallen off quite a bit since he was introduced. Harima, do I even need to talk about her? If you play PvP, you know this champion and you know how annoying she is to go against if you're trying to use a Sun Wukong or a Queen Ava or God forbid a Heffrak or a Candrafon or a Mortu Macabre or any of the other champions, even a Rotos that she efficiently counters, right? So Harima is insane with her passive here that enemy ignore defense effects are decreased by 50% and demon spawns cannot inflict critical hits. And she can't land weak hits on champions from the demon spawn faction either. So this affinity matchup just does not even matter when she's on your team. She is fantastic. She is in S tier without a doubt. If there was a tier above S tier, she would be in there as well without question. We got Mighty Uko. Mighty Uko is built out in a little bit of an interesting way. I have him in a 4-piece Stone Skin along with a stun. So basically he can just go second in arena and whatnot and kind of just, you know, absorb some of the buffs that the enemies are placing on themselves. Then he can come in and revive everybody. Fairly decent champion, not really used into today's meta though. Again, why is that? You probably know the answer. I know you do. You know, we've already talked about it once. The answer is Polymorph. With his A1 placing the decreased attack, A2 stealing all of those buffs, right? This guy is just a polymorph magnet. It is insane. I'm going to place him probably upper C tier, maybe mid B tier these days. If you're talking about the game overall, he's probably going to go into A tier if you're just looking at PvE, especially if you're mid game. Artak is a pretty decent champion that we got for free. I don't use him in many areas though. I don't have him fully booked. His A1 isn't fully booked, but the rest of his kit is. He can be an absolute beast for Ice Golem Bard though, right? With his burns and his detonations and all those sorts of good things. Also very, very good for Hydra if you need a burner there, as well as a decreased attack. This guy would be very good in a curse set as well. Overall, I'd give this guy probably like a mid B tier to be perfectly fair. I think that's kind of where he would sit. We have one of the more contentious champions in the game. This is going to be Ninja. Of course, he is built out for my Sand Devil comp there, so he's built very specifically. He does have fairly decent stats though still, right? And basically what he's doing is he's placing burns, and then he's detonating those burns, and then he's protecting himself with the Perfect Veil. And he has an AoE freeze as well, so an absolutely insane champion. This guy is honestly probably still going to go into S tier as a damage dealer, which says a lot because I use him in a lot of areas, especially if I'm trying to farm dungeons quickly like Dragon, if I'm trying to get through, obviously like I mentioned, Sand Devils, anywhere like that. This guy is an absolute boss killer. He's amazing. Yanaka is going to have basically 2 different ratings. So rating 1 is if you're abusing the hell out of her in Hydra, in which case she's going to be like up here, and then the rest of the S tier champions are like somewhere down here because she can just absolutely destroy everybody. Even Trunda, I would say, if you're trying to go through Hydra, she is so incredibly broken because of her shield strip. If you're talking about her regularly, I would say she's okay. She's probably going to sit in about mid B tier at best, maybe mid C tier at worst. She's a damage dealer, but damage dealers are a dime a dozen, and I barely ever use her if I'm being honest. Lydia, the Death Siren, was a champion that I worked so hard for to get because she was the reward for completing all your faction wars. I do have her built out relatively decently. She is an incredible champion even still. I use her a lot, especially in Hydra and whatnot, so she's placing decreased defense and weaken, as well as increased speed and strengthen on your team, which is fantastic. I'm going to give her an S tier. I still think she deserves it. She's very relevant inside some of the PvP teams. She's useful everywhere in PvE. She definitely deserves that rating, in my opinion. Razen Scarhide, permanent fusion. Not so good anymore. Don't want to talk about him a whole lot. He's going to be an F tier, honestly. His cooldowns are way too long for what he does. He doesn't do what he does very well. He's been power crept by champions that do it better. Fushan has use every single day on my account, albeit in one area of the game, and that's it, and that is Clan Boss. I don't really use him anywhere else. I think I might use him in... No, I don't even use him in Faction Wars, I don't think. So he's built out to be a Clan Boss demon, and that is about it. However, his role inside Clan Boss would put him into an S tier. If we're talking about the game overall, you're probably going to be putting him into a high C tier at best, I would say. So he does bring some stuns, and then he brings a decreased defense, right? So he's an okay champion, but outside of Clan Boss, not really too interested in him. White Queen Ancora, I have built out inside a Stone Skin set with some decent speed and other stats on there on her, of course. She is a very good champion. She's got an AoE cleanse, revive with a reset skills. I would say this is one of the best single target revives in the entire game. Because of that, I am probably going to put her into a high A, maybe a low S tier. She is absolutely incredible, useful in PvE as well as PvP. Zinogre Blademaster is a champion that I just recently maxed out. I definitely made sure to go for this fusion because I love the aesthetic of this champion. I think she looks incredibly badass. She's placing multiple hits on all her skills, right? So she has a total of like, what, 11 hits on 3 skills, which is insane. Very useful. She does actually make it into my hard Fire Knight team as well, which is 100% successful. So you can go and check out my video on that if you'd like. She is a damage dealer. For her role in Fire Knight, she's probably going to get like an A tier. But if you take away her role in Fire Knight, I would say she's probably going into mid C tier because at that point she is just a damage dealer that's very fast in dungeons. Michinaki, a champion that I thought I would use way more than I actually did. He basically just teams up with everybody, places a HP burn and a hex, as well as decreased defense and decreased attack. Fantastic champion, I won't lie, he definitely goes into the A tier. I just don't use him as much as I should, but he does still get use in my Hydra team. Eryx is an interesting one. Eryx has some terrible posture, first of all, if we look at that. Not like I can really talk, I gotta pop my neck. Oh, that felt good. But she is an AoE damage dealer on the A1 and A2 with an ally protection and a counter attack, so she can very proficiently farm something like Spider, even Spider hard, she can solo it. Very good for live arena if you're just looking to get a tanky champion. I'm going to put her into probably low C tier though, just because she is an HP based damage dealer, and on my particular account, if I'm looking for that parameter to be filled, I'm looking for either Taurus or Magnar. I'm not really looking for Eryx, as you can see. Sigmund the High Shield, I don't think we really need to talk about him. This guy's going into like D tier at best, possibly F tier at worst. He removes a buff. He places a provoke and a decreased attack, and he places a shield and a strengthen, but he just doesn't do anything particularly well. So I would say there are better options than him, even for something like the Hydra. People are pretty high on him, though, apparently. Countess Lix, a champion that I definitely want to build out, but I haven't really. So she attacks all enemies, places a block active skills and a pseudo reset on your team. Then she attacks everybody. She places decreased speed and decreases their turn meter, which is fantastic. And then she has the weaken on the A1. And she has some synergies here with Astralon if you have him. And then obviously if your team is getting debuffed, she actually fills her own turn meter as well. So overall, a very decent champion, I would say. I'm probably going to put her into about low B tier, I would say would be fair for her. We have Syl of the Drakes next, which is going to be a fantastic champion that I have used so much in the game. And I wish that that was reflected in some of the stats, but she used to be in basically every single team of mine. She's still built out relatively well. She brings AoE stuns, she brings a revive, she brings heals, she brings decreased speed. She is fantastic. Damage based on defense as well, so she can definitely output some numbers. I'm going to put her, so if you're end game, she's probably going to be a B or a C tier. If you're early game, mid game, or very early late game, she's probably going to be an S tier without question, unless you're lucky enough to have done the Pythion fusion or something like that. But she can carry you in so many areas, and I speak from experience. This champion was absolutely game-changing on my account. It was insane. It's hard to overstate how much she changed my account. If you just got her, build her, max her out, you will not regret it. I promise you that. We have Trunda Gilt Mallet, one of the more contentious champions in the game these days due to her use in the Hydra boss. She is built out decently well, nothing too crazy, 5600 attack, 262, and then of course she does have the Savage as well. I do need to come through and do a gear redux at some point. Thunder Thighs here though, if you're talking about Hydra usage, is going to be in a S tier without question. If you're talking about regular PvP nuking or even PvE, she's probably going to drop down a little bit to like a C tier, just because she doesn't bring anything incredibly special and she's fallen off the meta very hard inside the arena. Ragash, a champion that I was thinking was going to be great, but he was actually just okay. I wanted this champion for quite some time. I was excited to build him out. He has decreased defense as well as a stun on a nuke. He places a strengthen, brings his own increased defense, all that sort of stuff. He is definitely a fantastic champion. I just don't use him all that much. I'm going to drink a water real quick. I do think, though, that if you're anywhere besides endgame, you'll get a lot of use out of this guy. So if you get him, definitely build him out, feel good about it. I'm going to put him into probably a B tier. I'll say high B tier, maybe low S tier on the best of days. Nekmothar is kind of the little bug that could, the Energizer bug, if you will. He's bringing increased speed, filling turn meter, decreased speed, leech, all that sort of good stuff, decreased attack on the A1. This guy is absolutely fantastic. I have him built out for use in my Hydra team. He does get use every single rotation. I won't lie though, Hydra and Faction Wars are basically the only areas I use this guy, so for that reason I can't really put him anything above probably about a B tier, but if you're looking for those roles on your team, I don't think there's going to be really anyone that can do it better unless you're looking at like Ustrid or something like that. Riel the Huntmaster is still one of the hardest hitting champions in the game if you can set him up properly. I don't have him built out or anything like that just because I don't use him a whole lot apart from maybe Faction Wars sometimes. I'm going to give this guy probably a C tier just because his setup is a little bit annoying and he only brings one AoE, which is not the best, right? So if he had a second AoE or something like that, it would be pretty awesome. Samson the Masher, I can't really talk about too much. I actually built this guy out and I was excited to pull this guy mainly because of Erroneous and his live arena gameplay. So shout out to him if he's watching this video. He actually made me want to get this champion. I was watching one of his videos, oddly enough, and then I was just opening some ancient shards for an event, and this guy popped out and I was like, oh, well, what are the odds of that? So this guy is pretty awesome looking. I haven't built him yet though, so the grain of salt that comes with my rating is going to be the fact that I don't have hands-on experience with him yet, but I'm going to say that he'd probably be comfortably sitting inside like a B tier, maybe a low A tier when it comes to HP nukers, just because there's not a lot of them in the game, and this guy definitely brings some decent skills to be used. Mortu Macabre used to be absolutely insane. I still use this guy sometimes for countering like Kymar picks and stuff like that in the live arena, but again, with something like Harima coming in, it is definitely very hard to use this guy. With bomb champions taking over as well against Stone Skin, it's a little bit harder to use this guy as well. I'm going to say he's fallen off the meta quite a bit. For that reason, he's probably going to be sitting somewhere around a D tier in all honesty, because unless you're building him slow and to take a punishment and then just, you know, dish out block revives, he doesn't really bring a whole lot for your team. Apart from that, he doesn't do a ton of damage or anything like that until you're going against him in the campaign stage, in which case he's an absolute beast, but it is what it is. Queen Ava has been one of the first legendaries I think that I actually pulled. I think she might have been the very first, and so I was a little bit biased, of course. I do think she is an S tier champion, especially because of the buff that she got recently. So she has a 2x hitter, ignoring 50% of the defense. Her entire kit has an extra 15% of inflicting a critical hit, so you only need 85% crit rate, which is insane. It's hard to, you know, underestimate what kind of an effect that can have on your gearing. You pair that with her crit rate increase, and you only need like 70% crit rate. It's insane. And then, so of course, like I said, the block revive. If she kills somebody on the A3, she actually just fully resets all of her skills as well. Absolute S tier champion in my opinion. I used her as a long time for the campaign farming as well, before I actually got a Fellhound or before she got buffed. So like I say, I'm a little bit biased. My Salad, or Mushaled, is a decent champion who was way better back in the day because of this skill where he places increased speed and crit damage, and then he also places a True Fear and a Leech. Still a very decent champion, albeit power crept as hell. You can't really use him in PvP much these days because of, wait for it, polymorph. But anywhere else in the game, he can still be pretty decent for control. I'm going to put him at a B tier, I would say. Chogger was a champion that I was very excited to pull as well. He has decreased defense and a poison on everybody for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. The poison goes up for a 4-turn, which is insane. He ignores shield, block damage, and unkillable, which is incredible on his A3. And then his A1 has a chance to sleep with his passive counterattacking whenever somebody's under a decreased defense and they get a turn. So basically, this guy can just constantly cycle and keep everybody sleeping, which is insane. I don't use him really at all, apart from when I was progressing inside the Sand Devil and I need to sleep on the A1. Everything considered, I would say this guy is still an A tier champion. It's just I don't use him, so realistically I'm probably going to bump him down to, like, you know, mid B tier kind of thing, just because he does have a lot of utility, whether or not you make use of it. Yakarl the Scourge is a champion that I am very, very fond of. He has an AoE freeze, he places a freeze, steals the turn meter, all those sorts of good things, and then he also has freezes on the A1, so he's very specialized in the freeze department. He makes it into my Fire Knight hard team as well. Again, go check out that video if you're curious. This guy is absolutely fantastic. I would say nuking capabilities and utility combined make him into an easy S tier, and the fact that he's also Void, which means he's not going to weak hit, is incredible. Vizix the Unbowed is a champion that I think is pretty fantastic. I don't use her a whole lot anymore, unfortunately, just because I do have champions that do her role but better, essentially. She can be an absolute S tier, S plus tier for Hydra, though, if you need a provoker and a decreased speed, and she also brings ally protection and all those sorts of good things. She's very good for Fire Knight progression. She has a multi-hitter A1 with turn meter steal. She is an incredible champion. I'm probably going to put her into B tier, in all honesty, just because, like I said, I don't use her a whole lot, so I can't justify putting her anywhere above that. Eurost, I think this is going to be a little controversial. Eurost is from the Doom Tower hard. He's supposed to be able to place poisons and stuff like that, but I think this guy is actually an F tier champion. He does do some countering inside live arena and stuff like that against somebody like an Armanz. You can do some crazy synergies there, but I'm not a fan of this guy. If I'm looking for somebody to place poisons when they're hit, I'm just going to go ahead and bring in Taragi the Frog if you're looking at something like Scarab or Bommel, right? So definitely not a fan of this guy whatsoever. Venus is a champion that I use quite significantly. She is used in every single Hydra rotation. She has an AoE decreased defense and weaken, as well as an AoE HP burn, which is fantastic. She also has a cleanse if you have Cupidus on the same team, so she is a fantastic champion overall. I would say even on her own, I don't have Cupidus. I'm going to put her probably into the A tier, in all honesty. Soulless was a champion that I did some jumping jacks of joy when I had pulled him. He was the best the best defense nuker. He was basically the only defense nuker in the game when I pulled him. I pulled him a couple months after he came out. I don't even have him booked, though. I didn't get a whole lot of use out of him, certainly not as much use as I thought I was going to, so he kind of just sits in my library these days, in my vault sometimes. He's a decent champion, but he's fallen way off the meta, and Polymorph also helped to kill him, which isn't, you know, the best. It's a story that we've seen a lot on here already. I would say overall he's probably going to be sitting in the C tier, low C tier, maybe high D tier at best. Nishak Verminlord is a fantastic champion. I think he places the bombs, he places poisons, he places decreased attack, detonates the bombs, all those sorts of good things. This guy was a fusion as well, which puts him into probably an A tier because I do use him quite a lot in live arena as well as in dragons and stuff like that. He can be very useful, of course, for helping to counter Stone Skin teams as well. This goddamn champion right here is probably one of the most disappointing champions I have on my entire account. His kit reads well. Whenever an ally has 2 or more debuffs, this champion absorbs 30% of the damage inflicted, transfers all debuffs to a target enemy, uses his resistance instead of accuracy, attacks everybody, places a shield equal to the damage inflicted, damage based on defense. This guy sucks ass, in all honesty. I am not a fan of Helior. Helior doesn't really do what's listed in his kit as well as you'd think he does. The base stats aren't anything to write home about. If you have a Helior, sure, build him out, take him to 5-star. I wouldn't recommend 6-starring him, though. You could say he's going to get a little bit better when he's booked out. Sure, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I built this guy out for full-on damage at some point, too, so don't, you know, really base your opinion too much off this current build. But he just does not do good stuff, in my opinion. I'm very disappointed. F tier for this guy. He's probably, what, the only second champion to stay there? Thea, the Tomb Angel, is not booked out on my account. I thought she was going to do some incredible things, so basically just, you know, decreasing the cooldown of her this skill here, which would then give her an extra turn. I thought that was going to cycle quite well, so I wouldn't really have to book her or anything like that. You could probably get some use out of that when she is set up correctly. She actually is one of the hardest hitting champions in the game, which is pretty cool. Even still, I'm probably going to put her into a C tier at best, probably a D tier more realistically. I think that's where she belongs. War Chief is hands down the provoker in the game. He's got like the Dragon Slayer type of sword there too, which is pretty cool. A2, attacks one enemy, places a provoke for 3 turns, steals 2 random buffs. That's it. You can book this down to a 2-turn cooldown, so a 3-turn provoke on a 2-turn cooldown. If you're looking to progress in Hydra or Magma Dragon or anywhere else that needs a provoke, War Chief is the guy that you go with. Apart from that, he doesn't really do anything. I used to use him inside my Hydra team, but I don't anymore just because I now have the Archer, which we still have yet to talk about. Because of that, I'm probably going to put this guy into a low D tier, in all honesty, maybe top of F tier. He doesn't, like I say, he doesn't do anything apart from that. If you're trying to progress or whatnot, he's not going to be very good, again, unless you need a provoker. Skartorsis is a champion that I absolutely hate. The reason for that being is I was getting ready to go to bed one night and I accidentally opened 10 ancient shards instead of opening 10 mystery shards inside the game, and he popped out. And the reason I was mad about that is because the next day I knew there was starting a 10x on Duchess, and I really want Duchess, and I don't have Duchess still, and I got this guy, and in my mind, that was going to be Duchess if I pulled it the next day, so screw Skartorsis. That's my story to go along with it. He has an AoE A1. He does decent damage. He has some cool stuff in his kit, but he doesn't do much damage in my opinion. Stats are very, very low as well, right? I think he needs a bit of a rework. You can definitely get use out of him. You can get damage out of him, I won't lie, but he doesn't make it into really anywhere on my account. So for that reason, I'm probably going to give him an F tier rating in all honesty. Black Knight is basically War Chief with a bit more utility. He has an A1 with a 75% provoke. He has a continuous heal and increased defense for 2 turns on a 2-turn cooldown, which means it always stays up. And then he has a nuke on the A3 as well. He places an unkillable on himself for 1 turn if the damage exceeds 15% of max HP, which is pretty incredible. I use this guy a lot for progressing inside Magma. You could use him in the Hydra as well. Again, if you need a provoker, this is a good way to go. Or if you need somebody that's going to help keep you alive, of course. Rhonda, as you can see, I definitely use her very extensively. She's not fully booked out either. I do need to throw some extra books into her at some point. She does a very interesting skill. Again, one of the things that really stands against her, though, is the polymorph, right? Because she's placing that the debuffs. And, you know, apart from that, I do think she's a pretty decent champion. It's just I don't really get utility out of her on my account. So I would probably put her into maybe like a high D tier. I don't think I said anything about Black Knight. Black Knight's probably going to go into a B tier. Tila had a buff not all that long ago. I managed to book her out almost perfectly. She has a continuous heal and a burn, and then she also has a chance to increase the burns as well as placing a leech and a hex. She's not a bad champion. I would give her probably like a bottom of the bin C tier, just because I don't really use her anywhere. I have champions that do her role but better, but she could be very useful for like faction wars or something like that even. Kreela Witcharm is basically Tila but slightly reskinned, although I think Kreela came first. She has a ally attack on the A2 as well as a stun. The only thing that's weird about this is you can't direct the ally attack, so it has a chance of teaming up with 3 random allies to attack a random enemy, and it's not even a full team attack, so I do think she should probably be buffed a little bit. Or increase her base stats, of course, right? Like for a legendary support champion, 16,000 base HP is absolutely unheard of. I do use this champion a little bit, though, so I would say I'm probably going to place her into maybe like a C tier or something like that. Lord Champfort is a champion that can solo Scarab. There was talks about him soloing Iron Twins and all those sorts of good things as well. I believe he can solo Ice Golem too with the kit he has. He is an HP-based champion, placing shields on himself and all that sort of good stuff. I did try to build him out for those roles at one point, but I wasn't too impressed. Because of that, I'm probably going to go ahead and put this guy into maybe... If I'm being nice, he's D tier. If I'm being rude, he's F tier. Ray was the arena nuker that I used for quite a significant duration. She does have an absolute blast on her A2 where she increases her damage based on targets under debuffs. She has a decreased defense, and then she also has a remove buff and a freeze, so she's useful even still for something like Bommel, right? This champion is fantastic. She has decent multipliers. I don't use her at all anymore, though. When I did use her in Arena, she was S tier. These days, I'm probably going to put her in lower D tier just because she does still have some potential, but in terms of like where I have her on the account, she doesn't rank very high, unfortunately. Alatreon Blade Master, I have 0 experience with. I just got him booked out. I recently finished the Masteries. I have yet to gear him out or really use him anywhere. I hear essentially nothing but good things, so I will probably give this guy maybe like a C tier just because his kit does look good. He is a support. He's a limited time run champion. All the guides and everything like that on him make him look to be a very good champion. The lowest rating is, what, 4.5, which is incredible. So definitely think he is a good champion. It's just I haven't built him out. Archer, with the word that is very, very, very borderline to say. She is incredible. Increase accuracy on the A1. She has decreased speed and a stun. She has a hex and a provoke. She's absolutely fantastic. Brings basically every debuff that you need for Hydra. Her skin looks absolutely badass. As you can see, she's got basically 5s all across the board. She is an incredible, incredible, incredible champion. I'm definitely putting her in S tier. If there was a tier above S tier, she'd be one of the champions in it. We have Lady of Aerith. I actually made a video on this champion. Go check it out on the channel if you want. I was basically combining Reflex along with Refresh accessories. No books in her, and she has almost 100% uptime on the Strengthening Continuous Heal. She's bringing in Apothecary-esque heal as well, since it can be critical, healing them by 40% of their max HP, but it's also a cleanse and a turn meter boost if they're fully healed. Honestly, a pretty okay champion. If you're going to build her out and do her in the strat that I did, I would say she definitely deserves a little bit better than these ratings. She will help support your team. She has very good base stats as well. I'm probably going to give her a B tier, a low B tier in all honesty. I do use her quite a bit, so I use her in some of my more, free-to-play friendly teams and all that sort of good stuff when I'm making videos, but I do definitely like her. Tatura Rhymehide is a pretty interesting champion. He was a fusion back in the day. Definitely can do some damage on the A3, block debuffs, and increase defense. So if you're looking to set up a defensive nuker, he's one of the only champions that can do it effectively, along with the block debuffs, right? Very good for something like a clan boss team. He's incredible for use against Bommel as well. When attacked, he also reflects some of the damage, and he has a 30% chance of placing a freeze on the attacker for 1 turn, which is pretty cool. So, and he also has that defense in Doom Tower battles by 30%, which is pretty awesome as well. In terms of the rating, probably going to put him into a C tier. I don't really use him all that much, if at all. I don't even have him built out, so I can't really justify anything more than that. Molly Tankard was one of my most wanted champions for a while. I don't have her booked out. I did actually get her through the coin shop, so I didn't pull her or anything like that. She is a very good champion, though. She has a provoke, she has a revive, she has a turn meter boost when she's hit. Absolutely fantastic champion. Even still, I use her quite a bit in the Hydra. I would go ahead and give her probably like a top of A, maybe... no, sorry, bottom A, maybe upper B sort of tier. She is a very good support champion. Definitely power crept a little bit, though. She used to be essentially the meta because of this, and if you're going against Hegemon teams, she was fantastic. And lastly, we have Tomb Lord, who is a pretty fantastic champion even still. He's placing a decreased defense, decreased attack, decreased speed, and poisons, so he is pretty decent. He also decreases turn meter, so I would say he is a pretty fantastic champion overall. Definitely usable in soloing some content. He has literally nothing for base defense, though, and very low base HP, so it is definitely hard to keep him alive. Overall, I give this guy probably a B tier, though, because I do still use him quite frequently. If you're curious, this is some of the champions that we have in the vault here as well, so definitely a few legendaries still sitting in the vault as well. And I have just maxed out Varl as well, since everybody kept recommending him, but I don't have him geared or anything like that yet. I don't have masteries, nothing like that, so maybe a video on that coming soon. And of course, I do just have Wixwell now, but I don't have experience with him, and he's not fully at 60, so I didn't think it was fair to really rank him. I have been talking for 45 minutes straight. I am parched. I'm going to end the video here. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.